Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have the Galaxy S24 with me and I'm going to tell you what I like the most and the least after testing it, in case you're considering buying it. So as always, let me tell you, don't buy the Galaxy S24 without watching this video. Let's consider its launch price in Mexico, which has been 19,499 pesos. On screen you see the reference price in dollars, although remember that prices here are not the same as over there. I must be honest with you, and this device does not represent a very significant improvement over the Galaxy S23, so both are still very similar, and if you were to ask me, I would recommend you more to buy the Galaxy S23 because several of the advantages of this device will also be in the Galaxy S23, so rate that because I really consider that there's not that much evolution. Remember that this is a brief summary of what I like the most and the least, but you also have the full review available in case you want to know it in much more depth and detail. Let's start with what I like the most. It has a very good distribution, that is, you can find it in online stores, in physical stores, in phone companies, in department stores, in many places. So getting it can be a simple task. The variety of colors available is very good. This applies if you don't use a case, because if you use a case, as in my case, you will hardly notice the color of your device, so it only applies to users who use a transparent case or don't use a case because there is a very good variety of colors and the palette is very nice. Samsung, as always, betting on a very minimalist design. This device is very thin, very tiny, and very comfortable in the hand. It is one of the few devices today that can still be very comfortable for the size it is, because most devices today are very large. However, I insist that this applies to the Galaxy S23 as well, so go give that device a once-over as well, although it seems to me that this generation is slightly thinner. The display peaks at 2600 nits, this obviously when viewing HDR content. So, it is a screen that does represent an evolution with respect to the last generation, although again it is a slight increase in brightness, because in resolution it is still the same as the last generation. It has the natural tone mode on the screen. That's an option that I had been asking for a long time, and the Galaxy S23 doesn't have that option. When you have the natural tone option enabled, it's going to simulate the white color of the environment. That is, if the ambient white is warmer, the screen is also going to become warmer, and if the ambient white is cooler, more towards blue, the screen is also going to try to emulate that. This allows you a much more comfortable viewing because personally it has happened to me many times that I go to a shopping mall or a store where they have very cold lighting and my screen looks almost yellow. It looks very ugly, but in Galaxy S24 we finally see this natural tone screen option. It also has the standalone app sound feature, although that's on every Galaxy, but you know it allows us to send the sound from some apps to a Bluetooth speaker and the sound from other apps to stay on these speakers. So you can be listening to music at a party with all your friends, but you can also play a video on your cell phone without the audio having any problems. The front camera takes very good portraits. This is because it does manage to keep the foreground objects in focus and not just faces or bodies. So really the experience is very good, although again you also find this on Galaxy S23. When taking backlit pictures, the preview finally looks optimized. That's something that doesn't apply to Galaxy S23, so it's one of the few major changes and in practical life that just represents an improvement in the user experience, because when you go to take a picture of a person and there's a lot of light behind, this device optimizes the preview before you take the picture, because on Galaxy S23 and on many other devices, you have to take the picture and then wait a few seconds for everything to be optimized to see a balanced result between lights and shadows. But in this model, we already have a much more optimized preview that gives us a closer idea of how the final result would turn out. It also lets us take panoramic pictures with the ultra-wide camera. That's something that not all devices allow. In fact, I think only the Galaxy and maybe some Red Magic and some other device I can't remember, but you really can take very wide pictures thanks to this option, although it also applies to Galaxy S23. Portrait photography is very nice, even more so using the 3x zoom. Foreground detection is very good. The blur is very natural. Even backlit, portraits come out well balanced in highlights and shadows, so the experience is very good. Backlit video recording on any of the 3 lenses will be of good quality. That's something very remarkable because there are other devices that with the main camera have a good video experience, but with the other 2 cameras the experience is disastrous. However, with the Galaxy S24 we do have a very consistent experience in video quality. So, within the Android environment it is one of the best devices for recording video. It can record slow motion in 4K at 120 frames per second. That's a very nice feature that very few devices have today. Most devices are going to give you full HD slow motion, but this one is capable of doing it in 4K. It also has a portrait video mode to blur the background. With the front camera, I really like the result. And Samsung's One UI software is perfect. It has tons of options. You can open apps in Windows. You have Samsung Dex. You have Smart View to project your screen in an advanced way with other devices. You have modes and routines to automate everything on your phone and many more things that would take me too long to mention. But remember, you can check out my video review in case you want to know more details. But you know what? It also applies to the Galaxy S23. It has many artificial intelligence functions with Galaxy AI. You can summarize web pages, you can summarize your long notes as well, you can reformat them, you can translate calls, you can make a sound recording while your class is there or a meeting and ask it to summarize everything that was said. So really, it has very good features that are not just limited to a photo editing experience, which I think is the most striking because it also lets you delete objects or resize objects in the photos. So really, the experience is very good with Galaxy AI, but you know what? The Galaxy S23 is also getting the update with Galaxy AI, so I already told you many times, but I would more recommend you to buy the Galaxy S23 before it runs out. The battery life was very good. Considering it's a really very thin and very tiny device, you'd expect the battery to give very little performance, but in my testing, especially in the background test, I found that it does excellent management in the operating system to know which apps to prioritize and which apps to just leave running with less resources. So in my experience, I think the battery is a strong point. I insist, considering it's such a compact device. Generally, small devices are going to have very simple batteries, but not this one. Samsung has an excellent ecosystem. You have Galaxy Buds, Galaxy Watch, Galaxy Tab, and in some countries also the Galaxy Book. Although in Mexico, I will continue to insist that they should sell the Galaxy Book if they want to have their complete ecosystem. But in addition, through SmartThings, you can also connect to many devices in your home from many brands. So if you have an air conditioner, lamps, a lock, a doorbell, or different accessories, you can control everything from SmartThings. So I really love the ecosystem experience here. Even for exporting video in 4K, it's very fast. So if you want a mobile device to record and edit your content, believe me, on this device you can do it with good quality and good speed. But let's go with what I didn't like. The brightness of the screen could be a bit limited when it is very hot. So, if you are using the phone a lot outdoors, there might be some moments where the screen doesn't feel as bright as it needs to be. Especially if you have the natural hue feature, for some reason it lowers the screen brightness a little bit more. So, if you want to enjoy the best experience, you have to turn off the natural tone when you are outdoors. It does not support the LDAC codec in Bluetooth audio. This is something for the more specialized in audio, but remember that there are headphones that have much higher quality but need this codec in your cell phone. And in the case of Samsung, it does not have this support. If you want to enjoy good wireless audio on Samsung, you must buy Galaxy Buds. In selfies, the preview is not optimized. Just as I was telling you that on the back, when you go to take pictures against the light, it looks perfectly fine. Interestingly, when you use the front camera, this doesn't happen. Hopefully they will correct this with an update, because it would be nice to also enjoy this optimized preview with the front camera. The ultra-wide camera is not bad, but it could be improved, especially since it does not represent an evolution with respect to the Galaxy S23. And that's why I was telling you that it is more advisable to buy that device. Because in this case, I did not like it as an evolution. It's not that the pictures are bad, but it doesn't have an evolution. And I think that in other manufacturers we have started to see more evolution in the photographic system, incorporating better lenses or better sensors. But here we have the same as last generation. For example, this camera doesn't have autofocus, and generally in other manufacturers the ultra-wide camera is going to have autofocus for those very close scenes, and you can have a more uniform focus. So I insist that this photographic system falls short. At night, the camera doesn't manage to balance the illuminated areas very well. So if you really like to take pictures at night where there are illuminated signs, neon lit signs, the device is definitely not going to have as many capabilities to take a spectacular picture, even using the night mode. Although this obviously they could, and I think they should correct this through an update. The night recording also looks to me like it could use some improvement. Again, this is something that gives me the feeling that it falls short, especially since there is no evolution from last generation. And being a new device that is quite expensive, I could very well ask for improvements in this regard. There is no more super slow motion mode, I don't know for what reason, but the 960 frames per second super slow motion mode that was on Galaxy S23 is no longer on the Galaxy S24. The front camera could also improve its recording at night. Again, I think in this regard we can already get a lot more picky because it feels like the camera is getting very stagnant. Not that it's a bad or disastrous video, but for a device in 2024 which is a high-end, I think we could ask for much better. It only supports 4 fingerprint registrations on the in-display reader. Although this applies to virtually all Galaxy, then you are a little more limited with respect to other devices that offer up to 5 records, especially if you are a user who likes to register the fingers of their trusted people so they can have this comfort when unlocking your phone. It supports 25-watt charging, and you also have to buy the charger separately. Consider that Samsung already supports 45-watt charging on higher models, but on this, which is the base model of the Galaxy S24 series, it did not enable support for 45-watt charging. So considering that it is a small battery, it could have included the 45 charger to give us a very fast charge, but they have not done so. And especially compared to what other manufacturers offer, and even in the mid-range with very fast chargers, this falls too short. The proximity sensor is virtual. I would accept that on much cheaper devices, but on a high-end device, to me it's unacceptable that they use virtual proximity sensors. Consider that they can sometimes give some issues when you're making a call or when you're listening to WhatsApp audios, because it's not a completely physical sensor that detects when you're bringing the phone close to you, but it's based on the audio, how it bounces off your ear, and that causes the sensation at times can be a little bit shaky. The base model has 128 gigabytes of storage. In true Apple fashion, we are still given a very small base version. Consider that there are mid-range devices on the market with 256 gigabytes, or there are even others with up to 512 gigabytes. In this case, I would lose at least 256 gigabytes in the base model to give us a good storage experience, considering that you can't expand it. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM, which for this price falls short, especially considering that Samsung's operating system is loaded with lots and lots of options and lots of features, as well as highlighting as a strong point the fact that the operating system offers us many options, as against means that it consumes much more RAM, and 8 gigabytes are just barely fair. I would accept it in Samsung in a mid-range device, but in a high-end device it is absolutely necessary that they go up to 12 gigabytes if they want to give us a better experience. Also, the system should have more optimization when switching between apps because it doesn't feel as fluid. The Exynos processor in games falls below expectations. In this regard, even the Galaxy S23 from the last generation seems to have given us a better gaming experience. So, if gaming is your priority, definitely buy the Galaxy S23, because when gaming, we have considerably high heating on this device. Obviously, in everyday tasks, you're not going to notice significant heating, but when gaming, you might get to notice that heating a little more exaggerated, even though it has good cooling layers. But the processor is still not a gaming specialist, especially considering that it is a very compact device. Generally, devices this compact can suffer a lot in terms of cooling. But if you already bought it, let me know your experience in the comments. Let me know especially if you switched from the Galaxy S23 to the Galaxy S24, because in that sense I would like to know if you have experienced much difference or much improvement, or you feel that Samsung should improve much more. If you currently have the Galaxy S23, I wouldn't see it as a good decision to upgrade to the Galaxy S24, but maybe if you have the Galaxy S20 or the Galaxy S21, maybe you could consider upgrading to this version and you would experience a bit more of a difference. For now, we've come to the end of this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, you know you can point it out, and we'll see you next time.